Hey guys, and welcome to the finale of my trading series guide. This is going to be the advanced guide, so I can teach you how to make money, so I can teach you how to trade. There's a lot of things you need to know in this trading community. However, I really genuinely believe anyone can learn this stuff. It just takes time. I want you to be rich. I want you to be a millionaire. I want you to have the hats that you want to have. If you haven't checked out my beginner and intermediate guides, I recommend that you do that just because I'm going to be referring back to them in this video to extrapolate a little more on what I meant in those videos. But otherwise, let's just jump right into it. This first tip has to do with item oscillation or reflux, or you could even call it item rebounding. Some items have a tendency to go in circles or up and down and up and down and up and down. And that's what I mean when I say oscillation. We can look at Valkyr, and since 2019, it's gone down and up and up and down and up and down and up and down. And you see it's done this several times. So I can reasonably, now being an owner of it, and having seen it go up and down so many times, I can reasonably expect that it will do it again. It's down at the moment. So if I wanted to predict the market, which can be a risky thing to do, you can always predict it incorrectly. But if I wanted to predict the market and try and make money off of predicting what the market's going to do next, I could stock up on Valks as it's down and then trade them off when they're up. So if I got 3 Valks right now for 210, and it went back up to 240 and I traded them all away for a slight OP, let's say I traded them away for 250, that means I would have gotten 750 while only paying 630, meaning I made 120k just because I was able to predict what the item was going to do next. The reason I put this in the advanced guide is because you're not always going to have, as a beginner or as an intermediate trader, the value to be able to sit on 600k and let it sit there for a month or 2 months. The opportunity cost for that for a younger trader is going to be much heavier, especially if you don't predict it right and it doesn't play out the way you think it will. Now I actually have a good example of this trade that I can sort of analyze live with you to give you sort of an example of what I mean. See, Playful Vampire has a history of sort of being that same up and down and up and down. It has that same characteristic as Valk, and by the way, so does Legit. And Adderite has a precedent of being around 24k, around that area, and actually right now it's I think 20, and so it's a little bit lower than it has been, that its precedent has suggested it should, and so I could accept this. Currently it is a value in of about 4k. However, if I accept it and wait, Adderite rose, which I suspect it probably will, and if Legit rose, which I think I can say I know it will, and I'm willing to sit on these items long enough to let them rise of their own accord, I can actually make more than 4. I could actually make another 10k in addition to the 4 I'm already making this a 15k win, which of course I would accept. Now this is risky because you could say the exact same thing about PV. It might have a history of oscillating. If we look at PV here, we can see a bit of oscillation of up and down and up and down, except PV actually has a precedent of having been 100k in the past. So for PV to go from its current 65 to even just like, let's say 80, really would not be that hard to believe. So my trying to predict where the market will go in an attempt to make money could actually backfire on me because I'm underestimating what Playful Vampire will do. So that's what I mean when I say you can't always accurately predict the way things are going to go. And that nuance also is sort of why I'm putting this in the advanced guide. It's pretty much gambling. Now the first tip I gave in my beginner trading guide was that you have several small items instead of one larger one, and that you have a variety of items instead of multiple copies of the same item. Here's what I said about that. I would even suggest that you get one 1k item and 2 more unique 1k items instead of the same 1k item 3 times. This is because if you run into someone that doesn't happen to like this wide brim Gucci hat, well, if you have this and these goggles and this egg, which are all about 1k, you can still trade that person. Whereas if you had 3 of this item that they didn't happen to like for whatever reason, you just couldn't trade them. Just know that it unlocks a lot of different circumstances and a lot of different trades for you to send and receive, and having one item can sometimes handicap you a little bit. But there's actually more reasoning behind this tip than just what I put in that video. I've broken down why this is a good idea into at least 4 reasons. I want to go into each of them, and hopefully I can convince you that having a lot of little items like I have here, as opposed to having, you know, a Sparkle Time Fedora and a Dominus, is actually probably a better play. First, you should never put all your eggs in the same basket, and I'm guilty of this a little bit actually right now. I have 7 Valks, and Valk is actually, as we just went over, in a low point, and so now that it's lowering and its hype is sort of dying, I'm suffering a lot more than the average person would if they had just one. This is why stockbrokers don't invest all of their money or all of a client's money into one stock. If that stock tanks, you're wrecked, you're destroyed completely. Whereas if you diversify your investments and that one stock drops, well, you're probably good with the rest of your money. So if I had all my money invested in like a Dominus Messer or something, and someone's Messer hoard got released, well, I'm just bum out of luck because that was my entire value in one item, and now it's just bunk. Second reason, you'll notice as you start to move into bigger items when you're trading Sparkle Time Fedoras or whatever else, that the culture begins to shift, and having to OP 1 or 200k is actually commonplace for these items. You have to keep in mind, they're rich for a reason, they don't lose. So to get big items, you're really just gonna have to accept a bunk deal, and I don't like to do that. For the third reason, I'm gonna need you to imagine a hypothetical scenario. I want you to imagine you're selling a house. The house costs $25 million. Now, if you're a realtor for that house, how much of the population of the United States or of England do you think genuinely will be able to offer on that house? 1%, 1% of 1%? How many could genuinely offer on a $25 million house? Almost no one. Now I need you to imagine you're selling 10 $250,000 houses, of which most people could afford to at least make an offer on. Do you see the comparison here? If you have, like in my case, 2 bubble troubles, which are 55k, way more of the trading community is going to be able to offer on this item than this 370k item. Most people on Roblox aren't even worth 370k. By owning this item, I'm setting up a bulwark separating me from all of those people that I could be making deals with, that I could be making money on. So having big items is definitely a handicap in that respect. Now, my fourth reason why having small items is better than having big items, I'm gonna have to demonstrate using Lonnie's profile here. By the way, if somehow you don't know, Lonnie does have a trading YouTube channel that I recommend you look up. It's really good. But let's look at his biggest items here. If somehow his account were to be compromised by some sort of hacker or scammer or phisher or something, all it would take for them to yoink most of his value is 1 or 2 trades, because these items are so big. Let's say a hacker got into Lonnie's account and they were only able to complete 2 trades before he kicked them out and changed his password. Well, in those 2 trades, they would have made off with 17.3 million worth of value, which is 48% of Lonnie's value. In 2 trades, he could lose half of all of the items he's worked years and years and years to get. Now, if we look at my items and how I've spread my value out over a bunch of different smaller items, if those same hackers got into my account and also were only able to complete 2 trades, they would only make it out with 2.1 million, which is only about 20% of my total value. So spreading your value out over a bunch of different small items is actually sort of a safety thing. It's gonna make it much more difficult if someone gets into your account to take all of it. As I've just demonstrated, it would only take 2 trades to take almost 50% of Lonnie's value. 50%. In my case, they would only be able to make it out with 20% in this hypothetical scenario. This tip has to do with willingness to wait and willingness to walk away. Sometimes you feel obligated because you've invested 20 minutes into talking to someone and you thought you were going to make a deal, and then they're sort of pulling the rug out from underneath you and you feel like, wait, maybe I will compromise and give him the extra 3k that he wants. I hope by now you've learned this, but if you haven't, you need to know you have to be willing to walk away from trades. If you're not willing to walk away, people can ramp up the pressure on you and really just kind of take advantage. You also have to be willing to wait. With this trade, I'm not actually sure what to do. I'm leaning towards accept more than decline, especially because I have 13 playable vampires. It's probably not smart to have that many. And I think these items will probably go back up like we talked about already. But there's also nothing wrong with just keeping it inbound and waiting to see what happens. The value of one of these items could drop, or they could rise, which would further cement my opinion on the trade before I actually complete it officially. It's also important occasionally to check your outbound trades. This trade tomorrow could actually be a bad trade to send. Currently, this trade is a good trade to send for me. However, the malleability of items' values could lead that tomorrow, this is actually a really bad trade that I want to cancel. It has been the case that on occasion, I've had trades outbound that I forgot I sent and values changed, and it actually became a loss for me that got accepted later because someone did what I suggested you do and just kept it inbound for a while to see what would happen. I've said it before, trading takes forever. You don't need to respond to trades immediately, especially if you don't know what to do with them. I mentioned this just a few minutes ago, but as you get into advanced trading, as you have more value, you're going to be trading bigger items, which is a completely different ball game from trading items that you've probably been trading up to this point. To get an item like that, it's pretty typical that you have to OP 1 or 200k at least. If you can get one for less than that, it might be worth scooping up. It also happens to be the case that people with big items like that are usually very advanced traders themselves, and so you're going to have a more difficult time getting them to accept a trade that's not so good for them because they're so used to just winning all the time. But you're going to need to relearn an entirely new culture if you're going to trade big items like this. So have to consider that there are some rich people in high places. For example, I traded one of the Rallymon's valuers, my Sky Blue Sparkle Time Fedora, and Sky Blue officially rose its Rallymon value literally the next day. I'm not implying that's corruption necessarily. It could have just been a coincidence, or maybe they were already thinking about raising it, and this last trade that just so happened to be completed by the valuer is what convinced them it deserved a raise. I don't really know. It did seem a little coincidental to me. Finally, you're rich, It never hurts to give back. Now, don't get me wrong, you're not obligated to donate any of the value you've worked so hard for, but let's say you're where I am, somewhere around 10 million or multi-millionaire. What is 100 Robux to you, really? If you run into a kid who you think is genuine and genuinely just needs some help getting started, it never really hurts to just offer in 250 Robux. It's nothing, really. Now, if I donated every time someone asked, not only would I have nothing, I would actually be in debt. Like, Roblox would have had to create a debt system just for me because I would have donated so many freaking times. But I do try and make an effort to regularly donate to someone that I think genuinely could use a little bit of help. And maybe it'd be good for you to try that too. This has been my advanced trading guide. I really hope you learned something. Please be sure to subscribe. It helps me a lot. There's going to be more content like this in the future, dedicated to helping you succeed on this game. As always, trading's meant to be fun. Remember to have fun on this cool journey that we all get to do together, and I'll see you next time.